Number 10. Scaleless snakes. Indeed, there are some naturally occurring scaleless snakes out there. Did you know that? And it's pretty understandable to think that a snake without scales is a deformity. It does seem like a mistake in nature. However, it's technically a mutation. The absence of scales is a recessive trait, often compared to albinism that appears in many animals. Apparently, some scientists found out about these scaleless snakes and then decided to use them for breeding so that there could be more natural scaleless snakes. And the results are before you. So, why is this a controversial animal? Because unlike certain other animals presented, this one doesn't really have a purpose. While snake scales are usually revered as pretty in their coloring at times, it goes beyond just aesthetic. Rather, the scales can be protection for the snakes from predators and the elements. It's a very defining feature. So, are the snakes defenseless without the scales? Captive breeders encourage you to not feed scaleless snakes live prey, just in case the prey tries to bite or scratch the snake. However, when multiple wild scaleless snakes were caught and examined, they had no greater scarring than scaled snakes from the same area. This begs the question whether the lack of scales really means these snakes are more vulnerable. Oh, and if you're curious if the scaleless snakes still shed, they do. Snakes actually shed their skin, not their scales, so the absence of scales has no effect on the snake's shedding. Number 9. Dong Tao chicken. The chicken industry, especially in the United States, is something that is often incredibly controversial in regards to how both the chickens and the chicken farmers are treated. So thus, you'd think that they would want to go and walk a bit of a tightrope in regards to trying to tick people off more. But where there's money involved, rarely do people see things clearly. Such is the case with the Dong Tao chicken, because not only do these chickens have huge eyes, this one is really terrifying because it has really big feet. Yes, it's genetically created to have giant feet so that the foot meat can be sold at premium prices. Disgusting. And if you think that someone wouldn't pay a lot for these chickens, you'd be wrong. A pair once sold for $2,500. The catch here, and part of the reason for the high cost, is that these chickens are incredibly hard to breed, which should be a lesson that sometimes creating things like the Dong Tao chicken just shouldn't be done. Number 8. Seethrough goldfish. There are a lot of fish in the sea, but rarely can you actually see straight through the fish. True, there are species where this happens naturally, but for one new species of goldfish, this one was genetically created by humans for humans. The see-through goldfish were made in the Mia and Nagoya universities in Japan. And how did they create the translucent creature? Scientists crossbred fish that had defects in the gene that regulates pigment or color. And true to their name, you can actually see through their skin and look at their innards. You can see their brains, their hearts, their muscles, all of it. But what's the point of such a fish? Well, it was an animal rights group that proposed the idea that the fish be perfectly see-through, because this eliminates the need for students to dissect them. The universities also see this as a viable pet option and hope to make this goldfish available in public pet stores. What do you think of a fish swimming around with its organs showing? Is it cool? Is it creepy? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 7. Liger. The term big cats is a reference to the larger species of the cat kingdom, like lions and tigers. But there is a slightly less common creature that falls into this category, and it's a breed of a lion and a tiger, and it's known as the Liger. Yes, they are very real, and the Liger species is actually twice as big as both their parents, truly putting them in the giant category of animals in the world today. The largest liger in existence right now is named Hercules, and he can be found at the Myrtle Beaches Safari Wildlife Preserve in South Carolina. If you're wondering how big he is, Hercules is over 10 feet long, and he weighs over 900 pounds. Think what it would be like to stand next to Hercules. But you might be taller than him, but every other stat he would dwarf you in, and though not recommended, it would be possible to ride him like a certain master of the universe, given his girth. As if those feats weren't impressive enough, Hercules has shown that he can run over 55 miles per hour, and he has a running leap of over 40 feet. That's pretty impressive. And because this Liger is on this list, that means it was created by humans. Why did we do this? I guess we were curious like a big cat. We let a male lion and a female tiger mate, and thus the terrifying Liger was born. What other giant, vicious creatures will we let breed together next? Number 6, Enviro Pigs. Within all creatures are dangerous gases in one form or another, but for pigs, they actually have an excess of phosphorus. It starts within them, and then they emit it into the general environment through bowel movements. With millions upon millions of pigs doing this, scientists thought it may cause trouble for the environment in specific ways, and a desire to deter this was born. So scientists created what are called Enviro Pigs. Interestingly enough, they didn't have to do much to them. The changes were simple, yet effective. These pigs are able to absorb the phosphorus that is within them, thus reducing the amount that is let into the wide world. Phosphorus is a necessary part of the natural life cycle, but as in all things, having too much of it can cause problems. The problem with Enviro Pigs, though, is that they set a tone, a trend, and not exactly a good one. Because if we can go and do minor changes to animals to make them better for the environment, what's stopping us from doing that with animals just so we can be amused? Such as with the number 5, Glowfish. The ability to naturally glow is known as bioluminescence, and it's actually quite common in fish in certain areas of the ocean, especially those who live in the deepest parts of the ocean. However, scientists wanted to take this idea and turn it into something a bit more productive for them. So they did some tinkering, and the end result was what we call the glowfish. Technically speaking, the fish are actually called zebrafish, but they were later turned into the glowfish through experiments with a fluorescent protein that was taken from a jellyfish, which have also been known to glow. By inserting this protein into the zebrafish and allowing it to manifest, the glowfish were soon able to turn into different colors. The intent of the glowfish was to make it so that it would change colors based on the toxins that were in the water around it, which could help in identifying the more dangerous waters of the world. But because they glow, and glow quite brightly, they're very vulnerable in the waters, and they are easily spotted and eaten. So this is a terrifying backfire that they honestly should have seen coming. How did they recover from this failure? Simple. They started to sell the glowfish as pets. Number 4, Asherah. The Asherah was developed by a California-based company called Lifestyle Pets. Only 100 have been sold each year since 2006. Think about that for a second. There are literally cats everywhere, but the Asherah is meant to be a limited edition item, if you will, and thus the price reflects that. The Asherah is a hybrid of the African serval and the Asian leopard, and the domestic house cat. The Asherah is the most expensive cat in the world due to that. Some of them sell for $125,000. On the low end, it's still about $22,000 to get one of these cats. Oh, and even if you have the money to pay for this cat, you'll still be on the waiting list for about 9 months to procure one. But why is this such a horrifying creation? Are we no longer satisfied with nature taking its course? We want to do it ourselves and then sell it for max profit? What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments below. Number 3, Gen Pet. To be fair, this isn't actually a pet, but it's billed as one despite it being a hoax. The Gen Pet is a human-animal hybrid, and it's meant to be a safe pet to have, no matter what allergies you get. This hoax is more of a foreshadowing of where genetic experimentation on pets can get us in the future, including how they survive within the packaging themselves. While the Gen Pets hang on the store shelves, they are in the form of hibernation. Each Gen Pet package has a special nutrient feeding tube attached to it, supplying our specially formulated mix and keeping them healthy and asleep, says the website these are sold on. According to GenPets.com, the company uses a process called zygote microinjection, and this injection is quickly becoming a favorable method to combine DNA or to insert certain proteins from different species. Oh, and Gen Pets is actually a mixed media installation art piece by artist Adam Branges. The project has been shown in multiple galleries in Canada and Europe and has garnered some attention in the mass media. As ludicrous as the Gen Pet is, it does raise a lot of questions and curiosities. Could this be our future? You might think it's crazy, but after everything we've seen in regards to genetic manipulation and more, we can't rule this out. Number 2, sudden death mosquitoes. A British company came up with the idea to make a mosquito that couldn't breed and would also infect others to be sterile, all for the purpose of saving the human race. Confused? Mosquitoes are the #1 killer of humans and animals in the world. They can carry all kinds of diseases and transfer them to people by biting them. Back in 2012, there was a disease that threatened half of the human population called dengue fever, and mosquitoes were the cause of that spreading. So naturally, this needed to be curbed, and quickly. This was the birth of the sudden death mosquito. These mosquitoes would go out into the world and either make others sterile or cause pregnancies that would result in the birth of sterile mosquitoes. This, in turn, would allow the population to both be maintained while also not blowing up to such levels that all the mosquitoes would be able to transfer diseases to everyone. Unfortunately, these sudden death mosquitoes can never be let out into the mass, for if they do, they risk destroying the entire mosquito population. And that's the horror right there, because not unlike many movies and TV shows before it, this falls into the realm of good intentions, disastrous results. If we're not careful, it could be the end of many animal species, all because we were trying to get ahead of the curve. What do you think of these sudden death mosquitoes? Number 1, killer bee. The term killer bees is often used as a deterrent to interact with bees as a whole, since they sting. But in fact, killer bees are a real species, one that is a mix of European honeybees and the African honeybees, and they are one of the most dangerous bees in the world. Long story short, scientists wanted to create a bee that would be easier to handle and could produce more honey. To do this, they thought that making a hybrid would be the best way to do it. Except the whole thing backfired. Instead of making a calmer bee, they made a more aggressive one. If you were to scale them to other bees, killer bees are easily one of the most aggressive bees on the planet, hence the name. For example, when a landscaper and his crew went to investigate a house, there was a hive of killer bees in the attic. But they didn't know about it until they disrupted the hive and had 800,000 bees come swarming at them and stinging them everywhere they could. One man was stung over 100 times, and a witness to that event stated that these bees were so consuming that the man's entire face and neck were covered in the bees. Eventually, an exterminator was called in to handle the situation, but even he noted the dangerous nature of what was going on. They were dropping down at me before I even started approaching it, exterminator Jesus Corella told Tucson News Now. That was before I started spraying. They were dive bombing me, and that's a sign to back off. Back way off. So, as you can see, while many hybrids can be natural, some are forced into creation, with not the best results. In total, these killer bees have taken the lives of over 1,000 humans. Thanks for watching. What do you think of these terrifying animals humanity has bred into existence? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.